Gales of Nayeli is an upcoming SRPG from Blind Coco Studios that I've been following for a while, and it's got a demo out on the 28th. I was able to give it a try this weekend, and I really liked it. I think you should give the demo a chance too, but if you need to be sold on it, let me tell you why it impressed me so much. The demo's just one chapter, the third in the game, so we're dropped right into the story without full context for what's going on. Still, each of the characters are distinctive, and I'm looking forward to getting the full context of the story when the game comes out. I particularly liked Carrie, whose no-nonsense attitude and cool design made a great first impression on me. Before we jump into the gameplay though, we have to build our avatar unit. The avatar in this game is more of a minor character and can choose between 4 classes: Adventurer, Strider, Spellcaster, and Rogue. If you're more familiar with Fire Emblem, this is basically like choosing between Mercenary, Mage, Archer, and Thief. The Thief is pretty unique here though. Instead of being a utility class, they utilize daggers, which have low might but function like brave weapons, hitting up to 4 times. They can still use lockpicks and open chests like you might expect them to though. After you pick your class, you pick a pair of stats to get a boost in. Which one you want to pick will depend on your class, and in the demo I thought there was a reason to use each one of them. I suspect the stat boost and class selection will help provide some replay value in the full release since there are dozens of possible class combinations and boost combinations. Finally, we get into the map, and the first thing I noticed looking through my units is that so many units have access to 1-2 range, but almost all 1-2 range options are unable to double. The only ranged options that could double were the bows and one special tome obtained from a village. The Spellcaster avatar can also double, but only under specific conditions I'll get into later. Oh, also, the healer has a gun, which continues to crack me up. I really like the way Gales of Nayeli handles 1-2 range. It ensures that archers have a niche in being the dominant ranged attack option, especially since they can also attack from 3 range in this game. But other units are still able to provide chip with 1-2 range or team up to kill enemies from afar. The next thing I noticed in the demo was that each unit has 2 or 3 skills, some of which are passively active, such as allies doing more damage when near Nayeli, while others provide additional actions. For example, our axe fighter can shove. The most noteworthy action though is the Enchanter's Enchant action. This action can be used to buff an ally's next attack, causing them to deal a little more damage, but also hit on resistance. On the map in the demo, most enemies had pretty low res, so enchanting allowed units to do a lot more damage to enemies. Enchant also synergizes very well with fast units since they get to enjoy the extra damage twice when they double. If you remember what I said about Thieves earlier, you may have noticed a synergy here. Since Thieves can hit up to 4 times, they really get to pop off with the extra damage from Enchant. At first, I was really unimpressed by the game's Rogue because she does low damage, but once I started using Enchant on her, she was one of the most dangerous combat units in my squad. Our avatar also gets a special ability depending on their class. My favorite was the Mage's Focus ability. If they don't attack on a turn, they can focus instead of waiting, and this increases the power of their next attack. If you focus 3 times before attacking, you do a ton of damage and double even if the spell isn't normally capable of doubling. I used this ability to kill a particularly powerful armor, and it felt awesome seeing most of my units deal 1 to 4 damage to that enemy and then having my avatar totally nuke them. The Thief avatar also has the very exciting ability to move twice. He's a lot weaker than the other avatars, but being able to take 2 actions is very powerful. You can grab side objectives and still attack, perform hit and run attacks, or even just take out 2 units in a single turn. I suspect there's going to be some pretty powerful things you can do with this ability, and it's fun to think about the best ways to use it each turn. As long as you're not like me and you don't forget to use it. The skill system in this game overall is very nice. Characters have enough skills that there's something to think about with each of them, but not so much that it was overwhelming. And for people into building units, I think Gales of Nayeli is going to have something for you too. Because during the map, I picked up a bunch of items that can be consumed to grant a skill to a unit, so I expect there's going to be multiple of those throughout the campaign, allowing for some customization of your favorite units. Beyond skills, the game also boasts combat arts. Some of them, like Windsweep, will be familiar to Fire Emblem fans, but I really like some of the new ones Blind Coco Studios added. My favorite new combat art was Opportune Shot, which deals more damage if there's an ally next to the target. Another cool one was Carrie's Assassinate, which deals extra damage to enemies under 50% health. This creates a lot of situations where you need to think about combat sequencing. For example, if you want to fight a boss with the fighter Quidel, the archer Curtis, and the thief Carrie, the order they attack in is important. Quidel can attack first as he has no features that care about the attack order, Then Curtis can attack, getting a boost to his opportune shot from Quidel being next to the boss, and then Carry can go last, using Assassinate to finish off the low health target. As you may be gathering, there's just a lot of little things to think about in Gales of Nayeli, and you're rewarded for playing smart and taking advantage of your resources. And you're gonna need to as well, because the game can be pretty challenging on its hardest settings. The game offers 3 difficulty modes, basically an easy, medium, hard situation, but what's interesting here is that there are also gameplay modifiers that you can add on to any mode to make the game more challenging. Hardcore mode will turn off growths, so units can still level and promote, but they won't gain any stats upon leveling up. I've really enjoyed 0% growth runs in Fire Emblem, and it was really cool to see that implemented as a feature here. Another modifier is Rising Tide mode. In this mode, enemies get stronger every 4 turns, so if you're interested in playing fast and want the game to punish things like turtle strategies, this is the mode for you. When I first saw this mode, I was a little worried that it was going to be used in place of having maps that reward faster play, but the map in the demo had loads of rewards for fast play and for taking risks. Playing with Rising Tide mode on was just another level of challenge that I really enjoyed. Lastly, we have the Weapon Triangle mode. By default, Gales of Nayeli has no weapon triangle, and weapons are instead differentiated by their properties, such as what they're effective against. However, if you want the experience to be a little closer to Fire Emblem, the Triangle mode turns on the Weapon Triangle. This has a major effect on how the game plays out. Without the triangle, Quidel, our axe fighter, can dominate the middle of the demo map, but with Weapon Triangle on, he struggles with shaky hit rates against the sword fighters. Similarly, Sharif can tank the left side of the map for a long time without the Weapon Triangle, but without it he has a harder time holding back the axe enemies. I definitely recommend playing without the Weapon Triangle first, as the game was designed with that in mind, but adding the triangle or any of these modifiers will be a great way to spice up a second playthrough, and I like that you can apply them to any difficulty, so you can really tailor the experience to what you want. Be careful though, cause I tried hard mode with all the modifiers on, and that map was no cakewalk. You're in for a challenge for sure. I've talked about gameplay a lot, but one other thing I wanted to touch on is presentation. I really like the art style and design of the characters here. The animations are over the top in the best possible way. It reminds me a lot of GBA Fire Emblem, right down to the awesome critical hit animations. The game also features voice acting for character selection and crit quotes, which are just enough to add some character to each of the units that you'll use throughout the map. The diversity of the cast is also a strong point here. You may have noticed that Nayeli and some of the other characters are inspired by indigenous cultures. The demo's just one chapter, and I don't have the knowledge to speak to the quality of the representation, but the VA team includes multiple indigenous people, and Blind Coco Studios was in contact with indigenous people while working on the game. I know a ton of love and care was put into the cast, so it's something I have high hopes for. When I spoke to Blind Coco Studios, they told me the game will include characters inspired from areas all over the world, and that the team was in contact with people of those cultures while they were working on the game. As I said, I can't speak to the quality of the representation, but I think it's great that they took these steps, and I really liked what I saw from the characters in the demo. I'm going to talk a bit more about the map design itself now, so if you want to play the demo yourself, then I encourage you to go ahead and download it. You'll find a link in the description. It's worth your time, and if you need a little more convincing, let me tell you how fun this map is. It's a defense map, which as you may know are not always my cup of tea, but this one's really good. Immediately you see there are tons of side objectives for you to tackle. There's a pair of chests, a good droppable item on the boss, several villages, and an enemy with a strong droppable consumable. As a result, the defense timer doesn't feel like something you're waiting to finish, but rather a time limit for you to complete all the objectives. The enemies compared to your units are formidable, so you can't just have one unit solo a bunch of enemies without healing, but they aren't overwhelming either. They're in a sweet spot where most of your units will want buddies and no one can juggernaut the map. The closest is Quidel, who has awesome combat, but even he wants a little help from someone to finish off the enemies that he chunks. My favorite part of this map is that a few turns into it, a powerful armor unit comes in and blows up one of your defensive walls, heading straight for the defense point. If you're like me and you pushed out to grab all the objectives, you'll be panicking and scrambling back to defend the point. Killing him one turn before he reached the defense point was the highlight of my first play of the demo map. Another cool thing in the demo is that there's a few neat character interactions. My favorite is the village in the top left. The village gives 3 different items depending on who visits it. Sharif and Flynn each get a unique PRF weapon from it, and anyone else gets a 3rd item. Sharif's PRF is awesome for this map, by the way. It makes him so bulky he can handle the left side choke point all on his own for a really long time, which is really fun. The map also plays pretty dynamically. Every few turns the enemies get a boost, making the map hectic until the very end when even the boss starts moving. You can also rush out and kill the boss, which ends the map early. An interesting dynamic here is that it's very possible to get to the boss before all the side objectives are done, so you have to decide if you want to fight the boss and complete the map, or go for the side objectives and risk more reinforcements spawning. Suffice to say, I think the map is really neat. I only got every side objective before completing the map once, and every playthrough was a blast. I also really liked that changing my avatar meaningfully changed how I played the map. With Mage Avatar, I had an easier time with the armored enemy, but Nayeli needed more healing as the avatar couldn't help her tank the generics. As a fighter, the generic enemies were a piece of cake, but the armor was much harder to deal with. If the rest of the maps are as good as this one, I think Gales of Nayeli is going to be awesome. I highly encourage you to try the demo. One playthrough just takes about half an hour, but if you're like me, you'll want to try it 4 or 5 times. Check the link in the description, I think you'll really like it. If you liked this video and you want to see more like it, consider hitting the like or subscribe button so that you never miss an upload. Additionally, if you want to support the channel, we recently started a Patreon. It includes things like your name in each video, access to videos a day early, and access to video scripts and work-in-progress scripts, so check that out if you're interested. Lastly, if you want to hang out and talk about Fire Emblem some more, consider joining the community Discord. You'll find a link in the description. No matter what though, thanks for stopping by, and have yourself an awesome week.